It's the early 20th century and the island of Atlantis was discovered in the middle of the ocean. You are playing adventurers who are trying to get off the island with their riches and relics. The only problem is there are creatures trying to get you at every turn and the island's sinking on top of that. The goal of Survive Escape from Atlantis is to be the player with the most points at the end of the game. This is done by getting your adventurers to safe land before the island sinks. Survive is played in 4 phases. The first phase is to play a tile, if you have them. You will not play these on the first round because you will not have any. Tiles are gained by the third phase of the game, which we'll get to in a minute. The second phase of the game is the movement phase. Players can move their adventurers up to 3 spaces on their turn. This could be on the land, it could be going from land to a boat, going from boat to a land, going from water to land, but if your adventure happens to be in the water, you can only move 1 space per turn. Your movement can be split up between up to 3 adventurers in any combination of ways you want to do it. You could also move the empty boats 1 space at a time for 1 movement. The third phase of the game is to remove tiles from the island represented as sinking. Now the tiles are going to be removed in a specific order. First you will remove all of the beach tokens. Next you will remove all the forest tiles. And finally the mountain tiles will be removed from the board. Each tile has images on the underside of it representing a certain effect that can be played either on the beginning of your turn, immediately, or anytime you wish to as a defensive move. The final phase of the game is to roll the creature die. When you do this, you can move the creature. The creature die can be played in 1 of 2 ways. Either offensively, meaning the green player yelled the shark die, and now he's going to move a shark token into a space with a yellow player, eliminating the yellow player's adventurer from the game. Or defensively, meaning green player rolled the die, the shark symbol came up, and he can now move the shark away from his adventurer in the water. This will go on until 1 of 2 things happens. Either all the adventurers have made it to safe land and there are no longer any on the ocean hexes or on the island tiles, or the volcano tile is revealed. On the bottom of each adventurer there is a number. This represents victory points that will be counted up at the end of the game. At this point, the adventurers that had made it safely to land will be added up, and the winner will have the most victory points. Okay, in the box you get the game board. You get 40 adventurers in 4 different colors, 10 apiece. You get the serpent tokens, the shark tokens, and the whale tokens. You get the boat tokens. You get terrain tiles in mountains, forests, and beaches. 1 6-sided die and the instruction manual. Okay, here we have the board. This is where everything's going to happen, folks. As you can see, the board depicts the ocean, and there are land areas on the 4 corners of the board. On each corner of the board, there is an island. This is where you must get your adventures to in order to be able to use them for victory points. In the center is where we will set up Atlantis, and it will be confined to the hexes that are outlined by thick black borders. During setup, you will place your terrain tiles from the center of the board out within these hexes until you reach the ones with the darker border around them. During setup, you will place 1 of the serpent tokens on each of the hexes with the serpent symbol on it near each island. There is also a hex in the center of the board with the sea serpent symbol on it, and you will place a sea serpent on that hex. In my version of the game, there is also a legend on either side of the board. There are 3 different types of terrain in the game. We have mountain, forest, and beach. And even though they are different sizes, there is no terrain effect due to their size. On the underside of the tiles, there are different token effects. The tiles with the red borders are played at the beginning of your turn, and you can place a creature anywhere on the board that is unoccupied. Say the yellow player plays a shark token on the beginning of her turn. That means they can take a shark from anywhere on the board and place it in an unoccupied space anywhere else on the board. The tiles with the green borders are an immediate effect tile, meaning as soon as you flip them over, you must replace whatever picture is depicted on the tile and put that token in the spot where you took the tile from. In this instance, the green player flipped over the green border hex with the boat on it during his turn. You will remove the tile from the board, and in the spot that the tile was in, you will place a boat on it. The tiles with the red border and the X on them are defense tiles. These can be played at any time to defend yourself against the creature depicted on the tile. Green player rolls the whale symbol on the die at the end of his turn. Normally that means he can move this whale to crash into the boat and knock the yellow player off the boat and into the water. But being that the yellow player played the hex with the whale and the X on it, it nulls out the green player's attempt to knock him out of the boat. After this hex would be played, the creature would be removed from the board and put back into the stockpile. Tiles with the 3 and an arrow symbol on it mean that you can move that many spaces. For instance, the yellow player can move his swimmer 3 spaces as a free action when he plays it at the beginning of the round. So, he can move his swimmer 1, 2, 3 hexes. Each player will get 10 adventurers. On the base of the adventurers is a number, 1 through 6. That number represents how many victory points that adventurer is worth if the adventurer makes it to land before the end of the game. When a player is moving an adventure, he can move 1 adventure up to 3 spaces, or a combination of up to 3 adventurers 1 space. For instance, the green player can move this adventurer right here 1 space to here. Then he can move this adventurer here, and then he can finally move this adventurer here. On the other hand, he could have left this adventurer where he was, and then move this adventurer 1 more space. You could do it in any combination you want, as long as it's up to 3 spaces. You can have more than 1 adventurer on a hex in any combination of colors. An adventurer may also move from land to a boat. That is considered to be 1 movement. So in this case, the green player went from the forest to the boat, and that's 1 movement. Players can have their adventurers move into a boat if they are on a hex next to the boat. Say the green player wants to move more than 1 adventurer on a boat. He can do this in any combination of player colors on a boat as long as it does not exceed 3 adventurers. For example, the green player has 2 adventurers on this boat, and the yellow player has 1 adventurer on the boat. Now, in this case, the green player has the majority of adventurers on the boat, so the green player can control the boat where the yellow player cannot. And we'll get to more on that in a minute. A player may also put their adventurer in the water, and then the adventurer becomes a swimmer. To move your adventurer from the land tiles to the water costs 1 movement action. Likewise, to move your adventurer from the water to land also costs 1 movement action. If a player's adventurer is in the water and considered a swimmer, they can only move 1 hex per turn. Players may also move their adventurer from water onto a boat, but they cannot do that if the boat is adjacent to them. This is considered to cost 2 movement actions. A player may move their adventurer from the ocean into the boat if the boat is in the same tile as the adventurer. If a tile is removed from the board and a player's adventurer is on it, the tile is taken off the board and the adventurer is put in the hex that the tile was removed from, and that adventurer is considered to be a swimmer. At the start of the game, each player will be able to place 2 boats on the board. 2 boats may not occupy the same hex. Boats can move from 0 to 3 spaces. Any player could place their adventurer on a boat and take control of that boat as long as they have the majority. So in this example, we have the green player has 2 adventurers on this boat and the yellow player has 1. The green player can then move the boat 3 spaces. If each player has the same amount of adventurers on a boat, either player can move that boat. So on 1 turn, yellow player will move the boat 3 spaces. On the green player's next turn, he decided to move the boat 2 spaces. Now, if a boat is empty, any player can move it any amount of spaces they wish. Now, in order for your adventurers to survive, they must reach the land at the edges of the board. Now, in order to get off the boat and onto land, they must be in either the hex with the dock on it or the hex with the serpent symbol on it. Once they are in either one of these 2 hexes, it costs 1 movement point to go from the boat onto land. Okay, here we have the custom 6-sided die. On 2 sides there is a representation of the whale. On 2 more sides there's a representation of the shark. And finally there is a representation of the serpent on the last 2 sides. So you have a 1 in 3 chance of rolling each creature. If a serpent is rolled on a player's turn, you can move that serpent 1 space in any direction you choose, including into a space with a player's boat or swimmer. If a serpent is moved into a hex with a boat on it, and the boat has an adventure on it, the boat is removed from the board, and the adventure is also removed from the board. And it disqualifies that adventurer from adding any victory points to the player's total at the end of the game. If a serpent is moved into a hex with an adventurer, the adventurer is removed from the board and eliminated from the scoring process at the end of the game. If a shark symbol is rolled on a player's turn, that player can move a shark token from 0 to 2 hexes. Now, if a shark is placed in the same hex as an adventurer who is swimming, that adventurer is removed from the board and will not count during the scoring process. A boat can be in the same ocean hex as a shark with no effect. If the whale symbol is rolled on a player's turn, they can move the whale from 0 to 3 hexes. If there is an adventurer in a boat and he is either moved into a spot with a whale or the whale is moved into the spot with him, the adventurer will be knocked out of the boat and the adventurer is now considered a swimmer. If a player moves a whale into the hex with the adventurer and the shark in it, the adventurer will be knocked out of the boat by the whale, and then the adventurer will be removed from the game by the shark. The creatures can coexist in the same hexes in the ocean. And finally, we have the instruction manual. The instruction manual is very well written and should be able to answer most of your questions. On the last page there are also variants of how to play or score the game. And on the back there is a reference guide to what all the tiles and components look like and what they do. Okay, to set up Survive Escape from Atlantis, the first thing you're going to do is place each serpent token on the serpent symbol on the board. There's 5. 1 on each corner of the board next to the islands, and then 1 in the center. Okay, next you will place your terrain tiles face down and shuffle them, and then randomly place them on the board from the center out until you reach the hexes that have the darker outline on them. Next, each player is handed their 10 adventure tokens and 2 boat tokens. Next, you will select who the first player is. That player will place one of their adventurers on the board. The next player will place their adventurer on the board. And this will continue until everybody has placed all their adventurers on the board. Next, each player will place one of their 2 boats. Next, players will take turns placing their second boat token on an empty ocean spot on the board. Next, place all remaining shark, ship, and whale tokens on the side of the board. Give the first player the custom die, and you are now ready to play Survive Escape from Atlantis.